Hello friends, welcome back to English Classes Online. My name is Benjamin. In today's video, we are going to look at how to analyze literature. 2021 West African Senior School Certificate Examination, Literature in English Prep. If you are new to this channel, kindly subscribe to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Click on the bell icon as well so that whenever I upload a new video, you will be notified instantly. Let's dive into the lesson right away. The agenda for today's episode is as follows. Number one, what does it mean to analyze literature? That means we are going to look at what analyzing literature is all about. Number two, what analyzing literature is not. And number three, how to analyze literature. Let's look at this one by one. What does it mean to analyze literature? To analyze something is to examine it in order to explain and interpret it. Therefore, to analyze literature is to examine the parts in order to explain and interpret what the entire work is all about. Now, what analyzing literature is not? Analyzing literature is not any of the following and therefore must be avoided. Number one, analyzing literature is not reciting the story of the novel or play. That is not analyzing literature. You know, the mistake made by most WAEC candidates and other people who sit literature in English exams in by other examination bodies is that instead of analyzing literature, they are trying to tell the story of the text, either the story of the novel or of the play. They just want to recite the story, but that is not what it means to analyze literature. If you are asked to analyze any aspect of literature, the examiner is not expecting you to start telling the story of the text all over again. You are expected to analyze, which is to examine it with a view to explaining it and interpreting it. Of course, we are going to look at how to analyze literature in reality. Now, number two, analyzing literature is not trying to summarize the entire text. That's not what it means to analyze literature. Of course, in some cases, you might need to summarize some key points in that literary text, but that should be where necessary. And for instance, if you are asked to write a short note on a character, then you can summarize the key points concerning that character. Even while doing that, you are expected to analyze that aspect of literature by examining some relevant literary elements, all right, which we are going to explain. Number three, narrating the interesting incidents in the text is not what it means to analyze literature. Of course, it might be necessary in some cases to, narrate briefly some interesting incidents as much as they are relevant to the required analysis. But to go about narrating interesting incidents in the text, just anyhow, is really not analyzing literature, is really not what analyzing literature is about. All right? And number 4, analyzing literature is not necessarily evaluating the text, either to praise it or to condemn it, because you are not asked to critique the work. You are asked specific questions that need analysis. And analyzing literature is really different from evaluating the text or trying to assess its literary value. All right? Now, let's go a step further to look at how to analyze literature. Number 1, identify the literary elements in the given text, such as setting, plot, characters, theme, mood and tone, imagery, symbolism, narrative techniques, dramatic techniques, poetic devices, and so on and so forth. Number 2, present an argument or pick a theme and support it with relevant literary elements which provide evidence from the text. That is how to analyze literature. All right? Now, the literary terms are the working tools for analyzing literature. In the previous video I uploaded on literature, which is specifically about how to answer questions on how to answer literature in English questions in the West African Senior School Certificate examination. Of course, I did say that the literary terms need to be mastered, because they are the working tools that you will need for analyzing various aspects of literature. But I want to emphasize that when you are analyzing literature, you need to highlight certain main ideas. Literature is all about life. Literature portrays life, and literature examines the values of the human society. Literature x-rays the societal ills in society. I mean, the social ills in society. And literature mirrors the society. So when you analyze literature, you are expected to identify the message, the central message. You are expected to examine literature in the light of human experience and with specific focus on the lessons that are contained in that literary text. Human lessons, lessons that can be learned, lessons about life, lessons about human existence, lessons about, the things that human beings share in common. All right, those are the things that you are expected to analyze. How does the writer, the poet, the dramatist or playwright, the novelist, how does he or she, what kind of commentary does he or she make about life or human behavior? All right, which principles are highlighted in that particular novel? Which universal behaviors are projected? All right, which social issues are raised? All right, so those are the things that you need to critically look at when you are analyzing literature, not just telling stories. All right, now more on how to analyze literature. Now we are going to look at some essential ingredients to include in your analysis, and we are looking at 4 of them: the hook, the author and the title, important background information, then the thesis or the theme or the central message. All right, these are the things you ought to look at. And if we have to look at you know, what we mean by the hook, all right, then you will understand that there are two major things that can be used as a hook. You know, the hook is the attention grabber in every writer. That is the most of the time it appears in the first sentence, at least in the beginning of your analysis. Now, number one is a meaningful quotation. That's the first thing you can use as a hook. You know, the second one is a universal idea. You know, these two are closely related, because when you find a meaningful quotation, and what I mean by a meaningful quotation is a quotation that is relevant to the very idea you are going to discuss in that literary text. All right? So, or that aspect of literature, you need to ensure that the quotation is relevant, that quotation is really illustrated. There is something in that literary text or that work of art that illustrates that meaningful quotation, and that meaningful quotation provides the subject, the topic that you really want to discuss, you know, either as a theme or as a kind of relevant idea in that literary text. All right, that quotation, what it means and what it stands for, should be part of your discussion in your literary analysis, so it becomes a meaningful quotation. Then the second one is a universal idea. It should be an idea. For example, as I earlier mentioned, literature exposes social evils. So, you know, you might identify an evil, a social evil that is universally acknowledged as evil, and you examine it. Or it could be a good value or a positive principle, you know, something that is a good exemplary human quality that you want to discuss. All right, something that could be said to be a principle of success, or something that will, you know, contribute to personal development, a universal behavior, either positive or negative, but it has to be something that provides a lesson to mankind. All right, so these are the two things you can use as a hook. Now, let's look at specific examples. Although before we go and look at it, then there are other things that constitute essential ingredients that you need to include in your analysis. Whenever you are analyzing literature, it's important that you make reference to the author of that work of art and the title as well. This is what will confirm to the examiner that you really know what you are talking about. One of the parameters for awarding marks in the West African Senior School Certificate Examination or National Examinations Council Senior School Certificate Examination, or even in NAPTEP or other SSCE examining bodies, is really evidence that you have read the text. That this is key, you know. And one of the things that will convince the examiner that you actually read the text is that you know the author of that text and you know the title. If you make a mistake at this level, of course, you are showcasing or exhibiting crass ignorance, and of course, the examiner will score you very, very lowly. All right. Then another thing is you have to make reference to some important background information about the text. This is really very important. Sometimes you having read the text, you should know some very important background information, such as the setting of the text. When we talk of setting, we are talking about two things, you know. When we are talking about setting, of course, we are referring to two major things. All right. Let me actually show you what we mean by setting. All right. When we are talking about setting, we are talking about two major things. All right. Okay, two major things are the things we will be talking about. Well, let me just use text instead of the arrow. Well, let me start new text. Okay, so setting, there are two things that constitute setting, and that is where, when. And when we are talking of where, we are talking of the place, all right, where the actions of the play or story occurred. You know, the place, we are talking of the place, and the time. Where refers to the place, all right, and then when refers to the time, and not just time, but the social, cultural, you know, background, you know. For instance, if something, if a text, if a story or a play or a novel was set during the time of COVID, for instance, in a particular place, then it's important you mention it. You know, the background, the setting is important. Where and when, you know, the actions of the story are situated is really very important. Another thing that is worthy to be mentioned is, you know, aspects of course, the themes, all right? The aspects of the themes, of course, we are going to talk about it as well, but the themes are the main ideas, all right? The main ideas that are highlighted, that are discussed in that particular literary text. Well, let's go ahead to look at these things. Well, because of course the theme is already included here as part, as among the essential ingredients to include in the analysis. So the thesis is, of course, the main idea is related to theme and is also related to the central message. These three concepts can be used interchangeably, all right, especially in literature. So these are the essential ingredients to include in your analysis. And we are going to look at specific examples. Now, what is a hook? A hook can be any of the following. As I already hinted, a meaningful quotation or a universal idea. There are other things that can actually be used as a hook. For instance, a startling fact, a startling fact about the situation depicted in the text can also be used. But let's not bite more than we can chew. Let's restrict ourselves to these two concepts: a meaningful quotation and a universal idea. Now, example of using a meaningful quotation. Now, we want to look at one of the prose texts for this year's WAEC exam, and that is Second Class Citizen by Buchi Emecheta, which is part of the African prose. All right. Now, using a meaningful quotation, we can say there is an old saying that where there is a will, there is a way. You see, this is a quotation, and we want to connect it to our analysis, and that this is where it becomes meaningful. In Second Class Citizen, Buchi Emecheta illustrates this saying through the life of the protagonist Ada, who out of sheer determination pursues her dream to its fulfillment in spite of all the forces of sexism and racism militating against her ambition. Now, you see, this is exactly how we can use a meaningful quotation, as a hook in our literary analysis. We want to discuss an important aspect, a very important idea. Now, you can see that a meaningful quote is closely related to a universal idea, because a meaningful quote can be a universal idea. For instance, where there is a will, there is a way. You will agree with me that this is a universally accepted idea about life. People believe that you need to have the will in order to find the way. The will is very important. Your willingness to do something determines, the opening of the door, or the discovering of the right way to do it. First is the will to do it, and then comes the way. All right. So, and that is a universally accepted principle about life. And we want to discuss this as a very important theme in Second Class Citizen by Buchi Emecheta. So you can see how we have been able to connect that. And this is actually meaningful because in the text, if you have read it, you will discover that the central character, the protagonist, is a young woman, Ada, all right, who faces different kinds of discrimination. First of all, she experiences a very stiff gender discrimination against her right from her own family when the family decide to send her brother to school but refuse to send her. Instead, they decide to marry her out to a man. They give her out in marriage, all right? Meanwhile, it has been her dream to have sound education. It has also been her dream to travel to London. In spite of the discrimination against her, she persists, she pursues her dream, and she does whatever is required to make sure that she is sent to school. And when she eventually finds herself in school, she really studies hard and eventually wins a scholarship. So, you know, it's out of sheer determination she's able to overcome. When eventually she finds herself in London, she also discovers, of course, first of all, because of that unfair treatment she receives in her family, she sees herself as a second-hand citizen, even in her own family and in her own country. And with her knowledge of, you know, the odds against the woman in an African society, that a woman is subjugated, a woman is treated virtually as a second-class citizen, right from her parents' house. And when she eventually gets married and goes to live with the husband, of course, she's treated sometimes as an item of furniture in the house. You know, you find some husbands literally flogging their wife as like a school child. All right. So all these are all these highlight the plight of the African woman. And again, you discover that this young woman, Ada, in spite of these challenges, pursues her dream to its fulfillment. So that actually is something that is relevant. It is connected with the quotation we have given here, that where there is a will, there is a way, because we are looking at determination as a quality, as a principle that will enable one to succeed. And everyone will agree with that. All right. So that is exactly how you can use a hook in analyzing literature to make it quite interesting. Whoever reads it will really understand that you know what you are talking about. Now, another thing we can do is picking a theme. You know, we pick a theme from the literary work and we analyze it depending on the question that you are asked, or the assignment you are given to do, the aspect of literary analysis you are given to handle. Now, still on the same Second-Class Citizen by Buchi Emecheta, we want to pick the theme of discrimination, the evil of this discrimination. So now look at how we discuss it here. Buchi Emecheta's Second-Class Citizen is a portrayal of the evil of discrimination through the story of, let me try to use a highlighter here. Buchi Emecheta's Second-Class Citizen is a portrayal of the evil of discrimination through the story of a poor young Nigerian woman struggling to bring up her children in London in the face of challenges posed by racism. That's one aspect of discrimination. Before traveling to London, the young woman Ada has been a victim of gender discrimination right in her own family. Her parents decide to send her brother to school, but arrange for her to be married out to a man. She classifies herself as a second-class citizen as a result of this treatment. On getting to London, she realizes she is equally a second-class citizen in England because she is a black African. You can see that discrimination is one of the major themes in this novel. And you have cited evidences from the text to confirm that actually the author discusses discrimination as a social evil, you know, and that exactly is how to analyze literature. All right, you can pick a theme and discuss it. You can discuss a social evil. All right, because we know that literature itself is a work of art that is used to mirror the evils in society, to expose the evils in society. So you can talk about a particular social evil. For instance, in Second-Class Citizen, Buchi Emecheta exposes the hardships African women face in their everyday lives as a result of their being subjugated by their husbands and the society as a whole. Now, you can find a lot of evidence from the passage, from the novel, to back up this claim. Like I earlier mentioned, you have to come up with an argument. You are giving a viewpoint about what you believe the novel is about, and then you give some instances from the novel to back up this your claim. You have to make a valid claim that this is exactly what the author is exploring or is really portraying in that work of art. And it has to be something, either a social evil, a universal idea, all right, something that that teaches certain values or certain lessons. Looked at what analyzing literature is all about. We looked at what analyzing literature is not, and then we looked at how to analyze literature. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, like the video and share it with your friends and relations. Make sure also that you subscribe to this particular channel. If you have not done so, it's important you subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button below. It's also important you click on the bell icon so that whenever a new video is uploaded, you will be notified instantly. If you have any questions, any concerns, any suggestions, please leave them at the comments in the comment section below. In the description box, you will find related videos. You will find links to other videos that will be helpful to you, not only in the area of literature, but in the area of learning English and also content creation. There are a lot of videos that will be of great help to you if you really explore this channel. I want to thank you for being part of today's video. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye bye for now, and remain blessed.